welcome to my video. I'm Jennifer Roberts and this is a writing on the wall where I want to share with you just a thought that came to me about beauty. And I'm going to share the screen now just so I can get right into it. Share the screen. So I asked myself, have we forgotten to recognize what is beautiful? Have we forgotten to see what is beauty? We seem to have allowed ourselves to be driven in innovation, but allowing so very few to have, so very few as well that I don't feel represent the predominant numbers within the collective as far as the beings that they are, with a lack of empathy, with a huge amount of narcissism, cruelty, to have such control over that innovation. And the innovation that the many in the collective seem to come up with, they invariably use against us. And because we've given them such powers, such authority, and we pretend to ourselves that they act in such wisdom, that they're much better people, that they're leaders, when actually, when you look at where we are today, we've devolved in that we have come up with great innovations, but have not used them for the greatest good at all. And so I look at the meadow grass here that we've got on the screen. So we've got the meadow grass here. I'm just going to move me over to here. So we've got the meadow grass here. It's beautiful. It's wild. It's seeds finding their way. The smells you can imagine on this field. I've got many fields like it right next to me. The scent, the dew, all of that, it exhilarates the senses. It's beautiful to look at, but it also is extrasensory in that it doesn't just meet with these two eyes. And if you allow yourself to be connected to it, it goes right to the core of you. And sometimes you find yourself on a simple incline like this with a stone wall in front of you, and you just have to stop and say, wow, that sky, that grass, those flowers, those seeds that have found their way, those trees that have got all of their crooked nooks and crannies in the branches, that it's interesting, it's sensory, it's exhilarating when you connect to it. So we've gone from that to having such out of balance that many places in Newcastle are being covered with fake grass. One, you're taking away, we're putting so many roads down, we have done, we need the grass, we need things to be able to grow. And plus we need the jobs for people to be able to maintain them. And so you look at that, and yes, where everything has its place, say you are elderly and you've got a small patch of garden and you can't mow the lawn anymore, but you can build with your elevated pots and your elevated beds, beautiful. But then we have this overuse of it to the point where it's detrimental. It doesn't do the same thing to you when you walk on it. It's prickly, it's not soft, it doesn't smell. You don't see the butterflies landing, the bees landing on flowers, and watching them do their thing. Again, totally out of balance. But then taking it to us, we find ourselves in a place where we're being driven towards androgyny. And whereas I feel there's a level of soul that is the divine feminine, divine masculine, and so is an aspect or could be seen as an androgynous being, absolutely. In this system, we were beautifully made, male and female. We were beautifully and perfectly made. And we find ourselves in such confusion right now that we see these powers, these leaders, these so-called wisdom givers. We see them encouraging and forcing the children as young as my little Theodore, which I can't imagine. I mean, some days he's absolutely a cat in his mind. Some days he's a ninja. Some days he's a boy. Some days he's a fairy. He's got his body parts, but his imagination, he's finding himself, he's finding he's just exploring, quite literally exploring, as a child should be able to do freely. Excuse me. So we see that that we have this forcing of, even the beauty of a child, for goodness sake, is in severe detriment as to the psychological damage and now physical impact that is having on children that can't even trust their parent to allow them to explore and keep them safe from these so-called leaders. We can't do that because we have parents that have forgotten to see what is beautiful about their child's imagination, that has forgotten to, meet with challenging talks that you have with your child regarding sex and body parts, and as they go into puberty, the drives that they might feel, without labeling them, without having that easy get out of, oh, the leaders are pushing for this, we can make this normal. Actually finding parents in the collective pushing their children to be influencers of this movement that is so damaging, that forgets to see the beauty, the ball of energy that any child can be, exploring its own reality and exploring its consciousness. And there's a level of wisdom in those children before they're messed about with psychologically and physically by these so-called parents and by these so-called leaders and schools and whatnot. There's a level of consciousness within many children, not all, I feel some are non-player characters, but that many children, there's a level of consciousness that they're more connected to their divine than us, because they haven't had as long to be messed about with, but we seem like time is accelerating in itself. Everything seems to be pushed and pushed and pushed and accelerated quickly to get every wish and dream through of the eugenicist, of the collective molder, the architects that we have allowed to be in such places of power and influence. So they're pushing this hard, and I think it's important to look at how far we've come from just beauty, simple beauty. I was a stripper. I was a dancer, I was a stripper, I was a bartender wearing a bikini, nothing else. I got in touch with my body very much so through that. And I can tell you the levels of attraction, that I did not fit every man's model of perfection and of beauty, and neither did the girl standing next to me. But there was very definitely, ideals of beauty that different people fitted into. And so beauty is so random and so spontaneous. There's beauty in the empathetic moments that people have with one another, the compassionate moments that people have with one another. Beauty is standing on a hill on your own and just taking in the beauty of those flowers, and those flowers actually taking in the beauty of you that comes in the form of your breath. So there's so much to be had about going back to just recognizing beauty and giving reverence to it. And so where we've come now, we see that, and this is in no means, I'm talking about things we allow things to get too out of balance. And this is because there's too much complacency and apathy with these so-called influencers, these so-called beings who are in these places of power, and this apathy and complacency of the collective to allow it. And of course, there's a slew of reasons we could get into with spiritual coaching, that this happens, works out for many individuals who are broken, to allow these people to just decide the direction they're going to go in and, feel normalized by that. Rather than working on their inner work to balance themselves out and recognize their natural beauty, whatever that might be, on whatever aspect or level of self that is. So I'm talking about everything in balance. Like I mentioned, fake grass for an elderly person who just wants their elevated pots and can't mow the lawn anymore, but wants to still maintain a level of independence and a level of enjoyment of growing their own foods. Fine, that's in balance. But to allow these people to make decisions on our behalf to cover the city in it. I mean, that's out of balance, that's out of whack. So much so that it's been a huge boom in the economy in Britain, you know, to have this fake grass laid. When it's necessary, fine. When it's not, come on. And so we find ourselves in a place of, if we were to look at this here, and this is just, and again, remember what I said, there's no shape or form that is perfection in beauty that absolutely, why is it doing that? That absolutely, you know, fits, you know, every penny doesn't fit the slot. Remember that song? This is just quick photographs that I wanted to demonstrate with. And so we look at this lady. To me, she's beautiful, and I could find beauty in anybody, but well, most people. But you know, there's beauty here. She's natural. She's got her makeup on. Yes, she's adorned herself, but you can see her features that she was born with. You can see that her nose is not the plastic surgery nose. If it's close up, you can see the slight laughter lines. You can see that, you know, she has the laughter lines here, and they haven't bothered to airbrush out this part where there's wrinkles in her neck. And doing a bit of modeling and dancing and whatnot, it's unbelievable what they'll go to the lengths to airbrush out, making the neck thinner and whatnot. So this is just a quick photograph that I found that, you know, she's naturally beautiful and beautiful to look at in this picture. So, and I was drawn to a picture. I was drawn to that picture, and the moment she was in when that was taken, it feels to me like it was a happy place for her. That to me adds that level of beauty to it. So we've gone from that to seeing this in the collective, and by no means this being a rarity, you know. Yes, this is an extreme, and I chose it for a reason to be an extreme, but you know, look at the look at the contrast in why is it doing that? Sorry. Look at the contrast in these two pictures. You know, you have this natural, very natural beauty, this very natural smile to this. I mean, this person, and I don't know who this person is, I just saw the picture, but this person is going to have breathing problems. This person, you know, is going to have problems with eating, particularly breathing. This person is going to have to, you know, do levels of skincare that, you know, nobody should have to do. This person was probably very beautiful in her own right before this. This to me is sad. This to me shows a level of mental illness. This to me, I see this being encouraged, that 18-year-olds are getting plastic surgery. Now, again, you know, a few jobs here, a few jobs there, if it makes you feel good, but if it is to completely transform yourself, to completely take away from the natural beauty and the natural beautiful workings of the body, you can see here that between this photograph and this photograph, the breathing, the ability to breathe properly is going to be so different. The ability to eat and crunch and things like that, I presume, is going to be so very different. This is where we forget where have we gone with this? How have we allowed this to happen? Because it used to be also that you see this now where if I was to say to somebody, you know, you're too big to be on that horse. And this is a thing now. They're proving a point. Big girls in particular riding horses where they can't even carry their own weight and they're so big, they have a ricochet effect on the horse's back. So it's not just them landing like a sack of potatoes on the horse's back. Their levels of layers of fat are taking longer to come down. You can see it. So it's like 2 bounces to 1 rise. That must be so traumatic. Well, we know it's so traumatic to a horse's back. Yet you can't practically say now without getting literally attacked. I've tried it out to see what would happen online for fat shaming. And it's like, well, where does the horse's rights come in here, you know, because this person has chosen to be this size and then chosen to choose a sport that doesn't just challenge their own body, but challenges the body of an innocent horse, a beautiful being. You don't find the beauty and level of beauty and awesome power in that horse enough to sacrifice your want to get on it and literally break its back. Why can't you find the drive in yourself? If that's what you want to do, then fine, but do not get on a horse's back. If it is the sport that you're desperate to do, then fine, facilitate a body that facilitates the fairness of that. The same way that a doctor used to be able to say to somebody, you need to lose weight. And again, this is no judgment or anything from my part, it's just observation. You need to lose weight because if you do, this, and this is going to realign this, and this is going to work better in your body, or it's going to facilitate us to be able to put you under a general to save your life. Because right now you're too big, your lungs may collapse under a general anesthetic. The risk is too vast. You're not allowed to do that anymore. You're not allowed to have that medical, you know, straightforward is how it is opinion. The same way anorexia used to be classed and people would get the proper help for a mental illness, and it still is to some extent. But now we see girls deliberately starving themselves, doing and taking ridiculous things to be like their influencers, who have actually, for the most part, either done very clever makeup to sculpt their body the way that it is, or they've done very clever airbrushing, or they have actually had the money to go under the knife to create the unnatural results that many young girls, and now in increasing numbers, young boys, are trying to achieve by the means that they can afford. And now if you speak that out again, just like the obesity issue, you know, you're shaming. No, I'm caring. I'm trying to show you that there is a level of beauty in you that you cannot see, so you are self-sabotaging it, you're self-damaging it. We go from the beautiful curves of the female body. Just hide those. We go from the beautiful curves of the female body to, where is it? I haven't saved that one, but picture breasts. I used to have awesome breasts. Now I've been through 4 pregnancies and had breastfeeding 3 babies. You know, so they're not as they were, so to speak. They're still very nice. Have I considered boob jobs in the past? Of course I have. A lot of my friends, a lot of my dancers have very lovely, successful boob jobs, and it makes them feel good. It sculpts them, and I still think about it sometimes and think, I wouldn't have to wear a bra, I don't think. So there's that, but you go from the natural beauty of the breasts to this. Again, this cannot be physically healthy. This is a lot of weight on someone's chest. And I've had friends, my boobs used to be huge before I got pregnant. I've had friends that absolutely had boobies not far off this size, and they had to go for reducing surgery because there was a level of back damage that was being done to their upper back. It was causing a curvature, and it was starting to get painful. It was getting dangerous for them. And they had breaks in the skin, it took a lot to care for the very stretched skin. And so they had a reduction in order to be able to be more healthy, more balanced. But we go from the beautiful curves that are boobies. I love boobies. I love what they do. We go from the reverence that we should be given these magical mounds that give life, that even I had preemie babies for every baby that I had, and new studies came out that my milk absolutely started to mimic the exact hormones that my babies would have been getting in the latter months of pregnancy. And so, for instance, the boys didn't have any nipples because they were too early. And so the doctor at first thought they would never get them because they were born without them. And suddenly this midwife, in her very much more vast knowledge, being a midwife, came in and said, oh, no. We know that. We've known as midwives for a long, long time, but now we know scientifically that your breast milk will give your baby all of the bits and attributes that the baby would have gotten in vitro in the latter months of pregnancy. And so you look at that and you think the reference that these mounds should be given. Apart from that, they're beautiful to look at. Sorry, I've got such an itchy nose. If you look at the shape and sizes of breasts, and like I said, there is no one penny that fits the slot. It's like working in a stripper club. You recognize that some men have gotten used to augmented breasts like this and go for that, but the majority actually are much more attracted to natural breasts because they imagine touching them and them being soft and moldable, and also there are many men who prefer insy bitsy teeny weeny little pretty boobies, and others that prefer teardrop or high, and women alike also preferring different types of breast. It's okay to have that natural preference, but to go to levels that cause you harm, to change the body and forget the beauty of the things, the parts themselves, I think is very sad. And where maybe this at this point there's still a balancing point of it being a choice, a natural choice to go for this. We've seen that because we go to this level, through this complacency and apathy, there's just no stopping, is there? Because the people are getting addicted to the knife, to going under the knife. And that's when you end up with things like this happening, because there's been no self-restraint. And there's been no self-restraint because we've kept giving over the idea and ideals of what is beautiful to corporations, to these so-called powers that be, that will pay people to influence others, to drive a market, i.e. as plastic surgeons, as the medications that many people will need when you get to this level of plastic surgery, as to the continuous wanting to improve. We've forgotten even to see the beauty in aging and the beauty in that twinkle in an old lady's eyes. I used to look at my granny's eyes, glass blue eyes, and she's always been an attractive lady, and she was a bigger lady, but her skin was like a pearl. And she used to love the fact that she was called Margaret, and that meant pearl. Smooth as a baby's skin, right up until her dying day. And there was a beauty in her skin, in that she'd looked after herself, but there was this natural beauty that you could see the life lived on the skin, the laugh lines, the smile lines in the eyes, and this twinkle where her eyes, although she did have some eye problems towards the end, they never seemed to age. She recognised her own beauty. She used to kiss her own arm and say, well, somebody's got to kiss this skin. She loved herself, and that was shown. You could feel it when you were around her. It was special to be around her. And, you know, she commanded a level of respect without really ever commanding it. It was just that she gave herself a level of respect. She gave her body that had done so much, had like 9 pregnancies, some miscarriages, but 6 full-term babies, 2 menopause babies. You know, she gave reverence to this body, 5 foot nothing, that could do so much. She broke her back like I did and said that they said she wouldn't walk again. She walked again. You know, because she gave reverence to the beauty that her body represented, the magical being in itself that housed her spirit, her soul, that animated her time in this reality. She gave that reverence and that beauty to it. So where do we find ourselves now? And it's a bit like I started to think about it. And so it's a little bit like, let's see, let's clear this deck a little bit. Clear you, clear you. Okay. So say we've got a sculpture. Let's say we do, let's see what kind of sculpture we've got. So let's say you're imagining that this is, you know, you're imagining, remember, because this is on the fly. You're imagining this beautiful clay kneeling lady in meditation. You have it perfect. And I do this all the time with the artwork that I do, with the carving that I do, the painting that I do, whatever I'm doing, a piece of furniture or something. And I've got to take things off my mum, because my mum's a fabulous artist and is on making things all the time, thankfully now, for the Etsy shop that we've got coming on the way. But I've got to take things away from her. For instance, she's making a fabulous emperor on a throne. Now, she's made this all from clay and it looks beautiful. I've got to take that away from her now, because otherwise she keeps looking at it, and like many artists, like my best friend Jem, they take something, and if they look at it too long, they start picking at it and they forget the finished, beautiful feeling that they got when they knew it was finished and they glanced at it, and then complacency sets in. What's the word when you get used to something? And so you get used to something, and which one's this? That's not a blender. And so this one. So you get used to something, and you know, then all of a sudden they'll glance at it and they'll look at it. And if you don't take it off them, if you don't take it off my mum, she'll start chipping away at it, and she'll say, well, I could just improve it a little bit by taking a little bit off here, and maybe changing the chin a bit, and you know, maybe a little bit less hair, you know, let's rub that bit out. And so we do this in various different ways with ourselves throughout our life, and the way that we look at things, our children, or ourselves, or projects. And so, you know, she'll keep going at it, and you'll come in and you'll think, Mum, have you been touching that? No, I haven't touched it. No, you said it was lovely. I've left it, I promise. Okay. And then you come in and you find that, oh, she's like, took a little bit more off the foot, and it's like, Mum, you need to leave it, that's perfect. And I need to slim down the bottom area a little bit. And before you know it, you come into the house and now she's super unhappy because she looks at it and it's like, it's not even what I started off making. It doesn't even look like what I'd envisaged it as in the first place. You know, there's this, it's changed too much now because there's been this chipping away and chipping away and chipping away at what was already beautiful. And so like, she's like, oh my goodness, so literally you're left with sometimes just a scrumpled up bit of clay that was beautiful, or a scrumpled up bit of paper or canvas, you know, and they're like, oh, that's it, I took too much off. And there was a level. There's a level. And I think as a collective, we've met that level in that for too long we've been so disconnected in the many, to this meadow, to taking just a moment to walk through this reality, really connecting the aspects of us to the reality that we are in. Feeling the soil, feeling the grass, smelling the dew, smelling the flowers, hearing the buzz of life, exchanging it with your breath. Not taking the time to then see that in ourselves and measure ourselves against influence that would put this forward as healthy. This is somebody that has kept chiseling a bit more, and kept chiseling a bit more, and then is now at a point where it takes a lot more work, inner work, than I feel it would have took this person. And I'm speaking hypothetically again, this is just an image offline. It would take now a lot more inner work for this person, if I was working with this person, to reconnect with the beauty within themselves, because they obviously were always paying a lot of attention to the outside, to the surface. And so now the surface has been chipped away at, and the canvas has been scrumpled up and changed again and ripped up and done again, and the clay's been knocked off a little bit and chiseled a bit and shaved a bit. And now this person, if I was working with them, hypothetically, I would really have to get them to see that inner beauty that they didn't see before all of this chiseling, all of this messing about with nature. And so it's really important that as parents, as guardians, as just people within this experience, that we become reconnected to the sense of beauty that we hold right now within ourselves. It's natural that, you know, especially with all the pressures outside, that we nitpick, that we feel the pressures, that, you know, we look at others and we measure ourselves. It's being pushed in our faces every single day. But the complacency and apathy of being influenced quite so much for quite so long by people who don't have the betterment of the many at mind is that if we don't do this now, we are already seeing the potentials for breaking our children like never before, breaking them to a point of no return, allowing children to be labeled and conditioned and boxed into a box of you pretended to be a girl for quite some time now, a few weeks, because let's face it, a 6-year-old is only ever do it if it's a few weeks, it's a long phase. We're going to actually give you things that physically, and we're going to label it as it's unkind for you as a parent to not allow this child. It would actually be child abuse. It would be mental abuse to not allow this child get this medication that will block the natural process of puberty. They are trying to mess with nature on so many fronts. They are trying to redefine natural beauty. They are trying to redefine natural process. And I feel the repercussions of that are huge, not just in the physical, but also in the mental, emotional, spiritual, and on the soul level. if you can become so detached and so boxed off and fixed and labeled in this reality, do not think for 1 second that you are not detaching yourself and limiting yourself and boxing and fixing yourself in all of the other realities that you exist in and will transition to. There's been too much disconnect for too long, and I feel the next push is going to, well, it's not the next push, it's been happening, and I talked about it a little while ago, but there's going to be a much bigger push, particularly in Canada, and coming soon to the UK, of actually trying to rebrand and relabel the same way they did a virus into parents who care about the mental health and natural process of their children playing pretend, finding themselves, and parents who are sensible enough to even know that even if my child is pretty much definite, feels like they are just in the wrong body to a point that it's uncomfortable for them, having the wisdom to know as a parent, sometimes we have to just accept things as they are, and we can do that, but there are certain levels of things that we cannot do to children, that we can't give them adult medication. If I was to go and give a child adult medication to just get them to sleep, or just adult medication because I left it lying around, I would be deemed unfit as an adult, as a caregiver, as a guardian, as a parent. Yet they're relabeling and repackaging it, and this is going to get pushed in our faces like no tomorrow. That the opposite applies if it's to do with transgender, if it's to do with giving children adult medications to block or change hormonal processes that they are naturally blueprinted and coded to go through. It is difficult, and I feel the difficulty is coming for parents with this, in that children who are still going to schools don't think they're a safe place, don't think there are many more teachers there now that will be able to be heard. There are good teachers, there are fantastic teachers, but the system is going to drown them out on this one too. And that they're trying to push on all counts to make children into mini adults, which children are not. Children are a different level of being. They're in the exploratory phase. They are changing so much more rapidly than us, that for us to come in with adult medication that would block off any of that morphing and changing that they are naturally built in to do is so detrimental on every aspect and every level of their being. And there's going to be heavy influence within the education system to not allow children to see themselves as beautiful as they are. And they're going to hook into the natural insecurities that children have. Their bodies are changing all of the time. So 1 minute they'll feel insecure because they feel like they're towering above because they've had like a few inches worth of growth in a few months. And so it feels odd to them, and so it makes them feel conscious. Some may have spots, the skin's going through changes, these hormones are kicking in, and boys might have their voice squeaking 1 minute and down deep the next. All things that we used to be able to embrace and laugh about and feel endearing towards are now going to be attacked, big style. And so they're going to really hook into those insecurities that children would naturally feel, and it would be our job and their job to navigate your way through that, as we all did. And to love yourself through that, and to recognize the beauty further than, deeper than just the surface. To get our children used to the fact that it's okay if you're morphing and changing and going through some brilliant changes that you see as excellent, growing taller and getting a deeper voice and whatnot, or little girls getting breasts and things like that. But it is okay also to be uncomfortable and slightly unhappy with the change until your body gets used to it. It's okay to feel that level of discomfort without reaching out to the big pharma bottle, without reaching out for that anchor that these faculties, these systems are going to be throwing to your children, like you would cast a wire, cast a line for fishing. You know, they're going to have a real attractive little float on it to say, well, you're so unhappy with this, who you are right now. They won't tell them that this is going to pass in a few months' time. In a few weeks' time, you're going to be a different person yet again. Your voice is going to break and it's going to stay steady after that. They just tell them that you're unhappy right now. Look at this float. Look at this, that you could be this. You could be a pixie. You could be a boy. You could be a girl. You could be a dragon. Just cling on to this. And we're going to see the level of depravity and the realization of how they've been working real hard to take the power of that guardianship away from the parent. And sadly, there are many parents that have already given that guardianship over. They will already doubt their natural parental instincts and hand over the power to a teacher, social worker, a parliamentarian, all of which have proved to be failed systems at this point, conditioning systems at this point, and corrupt systems at this point. So it's something that we're going to have to look out for. And the thing with parents like yourselves, like me, uncles, aunts like yourselves, like me, we are still going to have to deal with this a little bit like that infusion that everyone's getting, in that we're still going to have to deal with this because there is a level of children influencing children like they naturally do. But if we've got lapsy, daisy parents who are allowing their children and themselves to just go for whatever floats floating to get out of this awkward and uncomfortable stage at that one moment in time, our children are going to witness that. And our children are going through the process of having those uncomfortable, not so nice times, wanting attention. And so we're going to have to be real strong in this and real forceful to ground ourselves and ground our children in the natural beauty of them. And that even the most uncomfortable and more seemingly ridiculous parts of growing and morphing and changing are beautiful. And that there's a level of beauty to being able to accept uncomfortability sometimes and find the beauty within that. Otherwise, we are building and constructing children that will be coerced on a whim as adults, influenced by pictures like this on a whim as adults. And that gives these nefarious bastards far too much power, more than they have even already. So be ready for this, be real forceful with this in the way that you are reinforcing confidence, self-confidence in the young, in your children. And they don't just have to be your children, your friends' children, online that are children's friends, and, letting them, giving them the reverence they deserve for who they are in their natural state at any given moment. Let them not be reaching out for this little fancy float that will, give them a quick fix for there and then, that they're going to regret later. And that has many levels of disconnection to it. So we find ourselves here, but there is beauty all around us. There's beauty within you and within me and within the children and within nature. And where they are pushing for this next stage in their cycle, for this next planned event, where they are pushing that process through, we can be ready. We can be pushing back even more forcefully by the way that we stand up as guardians to nature, as guardians to the cycles, as guardians to our children, as guardians to our elderly, giving reverence to the stages of life and reconnecting and re-establishing a knowing of the beauties within these different stages that we all go through and the processes that we all go through. Finding that wisdom again and being real forceful to push that forward. Being able to reconnect with the beauty inside of yourself is actually one of the greatest influences you can have on the young around you. For you to be able to get over all of these insecurities, many of which have been indoctrinated into you because you think you've got to look a certain way now because of these influences, You being a walking, talking example. Don't let your children hear you say all of the time, oh, I wish I didn't have this, and I wish I didn't have that, and I wish I could change this, and oh, I feel so fat today. Don't let them hear you say that. Be like my granny. Be like the Pearl, be like Margaret. Kiss your arm, say, mwah. Somebody's got to kiss it. Love that skin. There's power in that. It's leading by example. Children learn so much more by example than they do by being sat down and talked to. They're explorers and they witness so much. And actually, it's important that you connect with the beauty within you, because they won't just see this on a physical level by hearing it or not hearing those degrading words to self, but they'll actually see it in your auric field. You will glow, quite literally. Children see that real easy. Even if they can't put into words what they're seeing, they see that really easy. And so this is how we lead by example with this, and this is how we harness ourselves now and get ready for it now and reconnect with the beauty within us so that the children can be led by example, that they can have confidence in themselves. So that's about all for that one. I really appreciate you listening. I hope I got everything that I wanted to say out there. I think I did. It was a bit random and just quickly putting it together, but it's the next thing that is coming for sure with great gusto. And so I'm trying to speak out about the things that come. I'm trying to be able to instill foresight and foreknowing with the things that I'm noticing, of the things that come up psychically, so that we can actually get ahead rather than just being put in a tumble dryer by these bastards that keep just throwing things at us when we haven't had the foresight to chisel down and get the groundwork in first, so that we have firm foundations to stand up and say, not today, not our children. I really appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. I love you all. Much balance, much love, much wholeness. And remember, if I could sing, I'd be singing to you now. You're beautiful. So I'm singing it in spirit. Mwah.